Welcome back to the show. We got a great one lined up. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Garlinghouse. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and DigPerspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, it's $3.44 trillion market cap for crypto. The market's off 1%. 108,000 plus for Bitcoin now. It's creeping up. Ethereum 2,400 holding its own plus, and we see XRP number 4 spot $2.19, recovering from that dip to touch $2.08. We're up 0.3 in the 24. We're up 8.7 on the 7-day, ranging between $2.18 and $2.21. We'll keep an eye on it. Let's talk about this. Global gold reserves from central banks just hit 36,000 tons. This is approaching levels not seen since the Bretton Woods era in the 1960s. Back then, gold anchored the world financial system. Do you think it's a coincidence? And I'm glad they made this post. Shout out to Gold Telegraph. Absolutely, it is not a coincidence at my house, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it can be at yours if you'd like it to be, but this is all happening in coordination with the transition to the new digital on-chain economy. I really do believe it. And every transition, whether it be a global reserve currency transition or otherwise, is always anchored by gold. White House, at the same time that that's happening, White House crypto AI czar David Sachs says July will be a big month with a bill signing for the Genius Act, which means it'll pass the House, and the Clarity Act going to the Senate, which means it will pass the House and be sent to the Senate. And don't forget, in the interim, we have the big, beautiful tax bill that's supposed to be passed on July 4th, or at least introduced. Meanwhile, what do we know? Ripple and the SEC have agreed to drop appeals and end the legal battle. From CEO Brad Garlinghouse. He says, we're closing this chapter once and for all and focusing on what's most important, building the internet of value. Lock in. Absolutely right. Congratulations to you, Brad, and everybody at Ripple. I have to give you this 1:45 clip. Bravo, bravo to James Murphy, Meta Lawman. Boy, this guy is something else. Let me tell you what. Take a listen to what he says. This is before Brad Garlinghouse hit the internet and told the world that they were going to end the case. Attorney James Murphy calls it right here before it ever happened. And I'm glad we got it on film because they can't change history. Bravo, James.
So let's not forget, it was a victory. It was celebrated as a victory. And my guess is they will put it to bed pretty quickly.
Yeah. So that I was going to say, so that's your final thought there. You think this gets, what do you think happens here? Do you think they both drop the appeals and the case is officially over for good? We're done here. Do you think that happens?
Yeah, when appeals are dismissed, they are dismissed with prejudice. You can't re-bring them. To me, the one delay will be the question of whether the SEC must hold another vote, because this is a different settlement. It's a better settlement for the SEC, keeping the injunction, presumably keeping the 125 million. Caroline Crenshaw will still vote against it, but nevertheless, that may delay things. But I can tell you, there's no way the SEC wants to continue with their appeal because they do not believe in the arguments. It is not their position that trading on the secondary market is a bunch of free-floating investment contracts that are secured. It's ridiculous. It was always ridiculous. And so they're not going to pursue that. I'm 99% certain of that, but it may require a vote. And, that could be a few weeks, couple weeks, whatever. And Alderati and Garlinghouse have been thinking about this forever. What do we do if Torres? It's not like I'm the only one who figured out this ain't going a good direction, So what do we do? I think they're probably pretty close to ready.
Yeah.
And I think the ready is to pull the plug on that appeal and not pursue it for another year and a half.
And I would like to remind people the SEC sued Amazon, the SEC sued Microsoft, and the SEC sued Tesla. And they're all doing fantastic now. There you have it. Shout out to attorney James Murphy Medalaw, man. I tell you what, are we not really the most blessed community in this crypto space? I really feel like we are, to have access to the John Deatons, the Jeremy Hogans, and the James Murphys and the Fred Rispolis of the world, and everyone else out here that has been a huge supporting effort. It's just remarkable to me. I am absolutely in awe of the legal people that are in this space that have really come in to be communicative to everyone in this community, to really break down what they're seeing in here. It has been such a help over the last almost 5 years. That's how long we've been in this. So super grateful for all of them and their insights, and shout out to James for absolutely nailing that before it was actually announced. I mean, that's the proof in the pudding right there. XRP lawsuit update. Ripple clarifies that the recent injunction only affects pre-2018 institutional sales, leaving future sales unaffected. Oh, this is lawyer Fred Rispoli stepping up to the plate here. Freddie, you're amazing, my friend. The ongoing legal battle between Ripple Labs and the SEC has led to widespread confusion. Lawyer Fred Rispoli clarified the injunction does not impact Ripple institutional sales moving forward, ladies and gentlemen. The explanation centers around the specific context of institutional sales as defined in the legal proceedings, which, by the way, go all the way from the beginning of Ripple up through 2018. And he explains that the injunction only applies to sales made in that specific time frame and does not restrict Ripple from continuing its business operations, including institutional sales, moving forward. Well, you better buckle up. You better buckle up, because I'll tell you what, if Freddie's got that one right, you better watch out. Things could take off quick, because we also see at the same time, right? At the same time, Ripple's real USD stablecoin now handling 10 billion daily volumes across its entire ecosystem. That does include the EVM sidechain, the Ethereum network, and obviously the ledger, and anywhere else it may be at this point. But what I'm saying is quietly, this has crept up this volume to 10 billion without even having the major institutions playing in this space yet. And let us not forget, because I think this is a great way to understand the XRP ledger. XRP ledger equals largest USA-based blockchain protocol. Now, I don't think there's any other way to see this, and I think this is exactly why Smoke Dog laid this out this way. You can see Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance chains, all bigger, but nonetheless, their origin is global, Switzerland, Dubai. Number 4 spots, XRP. $19 billion market cap for XRP ledger, as they show in this diagram from 2023, showing that it is the largest United States of America blockchain protocol. And isn't that what we're really talking about here? And isn't that what all the strife and the struggle through this case has been about? Isn't it what I said in the last clip that I just played here? Where was it? Right there? What did I say here?
Appeal and not pursue it for another year and a half.
And I would like to remind people the SEC sued Amazon, the SEC sued Microsoft, and the SEC sued Tesla. And they're all doing fantastic now. There you have it. So isn't that what we're talking about here? Is getting the blessing of the largest United States of America based blockchain protocol and the company Ripple before integrating them and bringing them in and embracing them inside of the entire world financial system. I think that answer is yes at my house, which then points to this U.S. Strategic Crypto Reserve portfolio. XRP, Solana, ADA, you all remember when President Trump made this tweet, this post, rather, and then shared it with the world about moving forward on a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, Solana, ADA, and then came out in a separate post and said, oh, Bitcoin and Ethereum too. Remember that, right? Well, this is why I'm so hung up on the idea that we're going to see the United States Treasury launch U.S. digital asset bonds from the Treasury for XRP, Solana, ADA, and other U.S. domiciled protocols, maybe even Bitcoin and others too. But take a listen here. This is real. And listen to what Chris Giancarlo, the head of the Digital Dollar Project, says right here.
They're floating a lot of ideas, Chris, about how to acquire some of these digital assets. Are you hearing anything about the different suggestions on that? And there's obviously, I've talked about this, I know other people have floated the idea. Is it out of the realm of possibility to consider that there would be a new bond issuance of digital assets in the future? Not next Tuesday, but in the future.
Oh, I think it's more than a possibility.
Yeah. I think it's more than a possibility. And then listen how he goes on to talk about what we've talked about for years on this channel, about how you can control the price of these assets just the same way that they've controlled the price of commodities and oil for years.
I think you're going to see it at multiple levels. I think you're going to see it at the corporate level. I think you'll see it at municipal levels. And I think ultimately you'll see it at the national level.
And we are seeing that. Vivo Power. Look at the companies at the corporate level that are taking, to a tune of 8 companies have taken $1 billion worth of XRP into corporate treasuries, and we're just getting started. Then think ETFs. And there's been a projection by JP Morgan that $8 billion will be drawn off of the XRP market and liquidity float to be able to back these 8 ETF demand for a spot XRP ETF. Now sprinkle in how much demand will U.S. digital asset treasury bond issuance get?
And I also think that one of the things that really bothered this president about the private administration, government sees crypto routinely as part of law enforcement. In fact, they're not even able to currently quantify all the crypto that is held by government, because some of it is at the state and municipal level from routine, police stops. And the prior administration would at least, what was at the federal level, they would sell off routinely. And it annoys this president they did, though, because that they do that, because had they held on to it, we might be able to pay down some of the national debt. So he's committed to holding on to the seized crypto, and that's something that doesn't need congressional authorization. They can just do that as a routine matter, and it's across the board in terms of different crypto. Beyond that, they're also thinking about how do we create something that's more like a reserve. The difference between a stockpile you just collect. A reserve is something that you actually actively utilize. So our strategic petroleum reserve is something that is not just used. You may think it's only used if we have a shortage of oil, we release some oil. No, it's actually used strategically and for monetary policy purposes, because the dollar is tied to the global price of oil. If our economic adversaries, like OPEC, decide to reduce production to drive up the price, we can sell from the reserve to counter that and reduce the price, and therefore control the exchange rate for dollars. So we use the strategic reserve. Well, when you've got the BRICS countries talking about creating a rival currency to the dollar and perhaps pegging it to physical commodities like gold or digital commodities, then it makes sense for us to actually reserve that to do the same thing we do with strategic petroleum. So that's very much, again, an earlier panel talked about these coming rivals to the dollar. There's no question that there is desire amongst many countries, the BRICS countries and others, to come up with a rival, but that is why the United States is stockpiling gold. That is why the United States is now stockpiling crypto, because they're aware of those threats and they are committed to preserving the dollar. Now, we've got to get Congress on that same track. The White House is doing their job to cut spending. We've got to get Congress to do it. And if any indication, the recent debates over the budget bill and the tax bill are not encouraging about Congress's ability to live off the credit card.
And you know what's interesting is when you talk about the oil comparison here, in the creation of this digital asset stockpile, they can sell the assets out of there. And I think some people have mistakenly looked at that as a deficiency to that. But what I saw is that that is just like oil. They can sell oil. So if they acquire these digital assets and over time they can sell them, they could price control these assets in question just as they do oil.
And you know, countries have been doing this since the dawn of time. Right. We know that ancient Egypt actually stockpiled wheat.
The dawn of time, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we've been laughed at, ridiculed, attacked, all of it, over this very notion. And it's exactly where we're going as a country. Lock in. Just in, ETF expert Nate Grazzi here says BlackRock is preparing to file for an XRP spot ETF. Now that the case is closed, he shares the post from Brad Garlinghouse saying the appeal will be dropped by both sides. And he says this clears the way for BlackRock to jump in. I say, come on in, BlackRock, come on in. Here's Crypto Wizard that says this: XRP is attempting a breakout of the falling wedge. A successful breakout will see it rocket to $2.80. And once $2.80 is broken, a new all-time high comes in. How about that? Loving that for all of us. And one more before we get out of here. Digital asset investor, shout out to the GOAT. He says, I know many people who got tattoos when they were young and regret them because life changes. When someone with a Harvard MBA gets a tattooed after 50 years old, they have thought it through and know it's only going to change in a good way. Lock in. Brad Garlinghouse has zero doubt. Damn right. Great post. And Brad Garlinghouse comes in and goes 1,000%. Bingo, bammo. That's where we are. Oh, happy Sunday to all of you. That's going to do it for me. Not financial advice for me or anyone else. Lock in. Start picking out that tattoo. I'll catch all of you on the next one.